She packed her whole desk into one small box. Then she walked across the floor in silence. Simone Brooks is a Black American furniture saleswoman at Han Living, 29 years old. She closes the deals no one else can close. In her bag sits her mother's heart clinic pamphlet, and rent that's already late. She built the Casa Real project with her own hands. She carried the recommendation letter to the final round. She believed the promotion was hers. Then the room filled with balloons, and the title went to the heir, Han Min-jae. They call him the Snow Wolf. A tiger tattoo runs down the left side of his neck, vanishing under his collar. Luxury watch, tailored black suit. He had never sold a single thing in his life. They applauded him. Park asked her to stay and train him. She said no. She put the photo, the mug, the notebook in the box, and she crossed the salon without a word. 3 years pass. Her small shop barely breathes. Han Living is collapsing, and the Snow Wolf finds her again, in a warehouse, hands dirty, a mafia crown now on his head, and a vote counting down. He hands her a contract. 45 days. But what she was about to uncover in those warehouses. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a member and help our channel. Simone Brooks put her hand flat on the modular layout and stopped the client from signing. "Wait," she said. "Not that one." The man across the showroom table had a pen already uncapped. His wife had her phone out, comparing prices. Behind them, the Han Living floor stretched under warm lights, sofas and shelving units arranged like little rooms without walls. Simone slid the contract 2 inches back toward herself. "The 42 unit is what you asked for," she said. "It's not what your apartment needs." The wife lowered her phone. "You're talking us out of a sale." "I'm talking you out of the wrong sale." Simone opened her sales notebook, turned it so they could see, and drew a fast rectangle with her pen. "Your living room is narrow, long window on the east wall. The 42 blocks your light after 2 in the afternoon. You'll hate it by winter." The man looked at his wife. Something moved between them, quiet, the way it does with people who have been married a long time. "So what do we buy?" he said. "The 38. Same shelving, shorter run, and I add the corner desk your son needs for school." Simone wrote 3 numbers and circled the last one. "It comes to less, but I'm not cutting your service package. You keep the full install, the 10-year frame warranty, all of it." The wife leaned in. "How do you do that? Lower price, same everything?" "Because I move it off the frame, not the labor." Simone kept her voice even. She had done this 100 times and it still made the managers nervous, and she had learned not to look at the managers. "The number that drops is mine to give, not yours to lose." The pen hovered. Then the man signed. Simone did not smile until she had the signature. Then she let it come, small, controlled, and she shook both their hands and walked them to the pickup desk herself. She logged the sale. 38 unit, corner desk, full package. Her commission held at the top tier because she had structured the discount against the manufacturer rebate and not against her own margin. Nobody upstairs had taught her that. She had figured it out in her 2nd year, alone, on a napkin, after a slow month that had nearly sunk her. That was 6 years ago. She had not had a slow month since. She crossed the floor to her station. Han Living took up 2 levels of a converted warehouse on the edge of the design district. Exposed brick, black steel, the company's name in low letters over the entrance. The Korean furniture group had come to the American market 8 years back, and this was their flagship. Simone had walked in with no degree and a folder of hand-drawn room plans and asked for a job on the floor. The regional manager had almost said no. Almost. Her phone buzzed against the desk. She turned it face up. The screen showed a reminder she had set for herself 3 days ago. Rent, followed by a number. She turned the phone back over. Evelyn Price dropped into the chair beside her without being asked. Evelyn ran the install scheduling desk, tight braids in a high knot, amber-framed glasses pushed up, a lanyard of colored markers around her neck. "You did the thing again," Evelyn said. "What thing?" "The talk them down thing. I heard it from across the floor. The husband was ready to buy the big one, and you shrank it on him." It was wrong for the room. It was $800 more for the store. Evelyn pulled a marker off her lanyard, uncapped it, capped it. You know Park watches that. Simone did not answer. Park Dae-sung was the operations director, the man the Seoul office had sent to run the American floor, and he watched everything through his thin glasses and said almost nothing. He had never once told Simone she did good work. He had also never told her she did bad work. He simply logged her numbers and moved on, and her numbers were the best on the floor, so he had nothing to log. The room comes back, Simone said. The big sale doesn't. That family buys their next 4 rooms here because I sent them home happy. Park can read a spreadsheet. He'll see it in a year. He reads the spreadsheet the way he wants to read it. Evelyn tapped her marker against the desk. You know what he wrote on my scheduling report last month? 3 words. Improve route efficiency. That's it. No hello, no thank you, no you saved the East deliveries twice. Improve route efficiency. That sounds like him. That is him. Evelyn leaned back. You ever notice he never signs anything with a name you can question? Everything comes down through the system, never his mouth. Man's been here 2 years and I've heard him say maybe 40 words to a human being. Simone had noticed. She noticed everything on this floor. The way the East route stock came in flagged wrong, the way the good salespeople stayed commission and the mediocre ones got moved to salaried desk jobs upstairs, the way Park's glasses caught the light so you could never quite see his eyes. He knows my numbers, she said. That's all I need him to know. You planning to be here in a year? Simone looked at her. Evelyn spread her hands. I'm just saying, you've been on the floor 6 years. You draw the room plans they put in the catalog. Half the training deck is your language, and you're still commission. I'm the best commission they've got. That's my point, Simone. Simone's phone buzzed again. Not the store, her mother's name. She stepped away from the desk to take it, one hand cupped over her ear against the showroom music. Mama. Baby, I don't want you to worry. Lorraine Brooks always opened that way, which was how Simone knew to worry. The doctor's office called. They moved the appointment up. Moved it up to when? Thursday. The cardiologist wants to see me before the... A pause, papery, the sound of her mother turning a page. Before they schedule the test. It's just a test, baby. Simone put her back to the floor. What kind of test? The one where they look at the heart. With the dye. Lorraine said it lightly, the way she said everything heavy. It's routine. But the office said, and I wrote it down so I'd tell you right. They said to confirm the insurance covers the facility before I come. Because the last place, I'll handle the insurance. You don't have to. I'll handle it, Mama. Thursday, I'll drive you. She hung up and stood a moment with the phone against her chest. In her bag, folded into the inside pocket, was a glossy trifold brochure she had picked up at the pharmacy 2 weeks ago. A supplemental health plan, the kind that covered the facility fees the basic plan left off, the dye tests, the specialists, the gaps that turned a routine morning into a $1,000 afternoon. She had read it on the bus 4 times. She had not signed anything. Signing it meant a monthly number she did not yet have room for, and the rent reminder was still glowing on her phone, and her brother's tuition deposit was due at the end of the month. She had the brochure memorized. She kept it in the zippered pocket anyway, the way you keep a door you haven't decided to open. Simone put the phone away and went back to the floor. She sold 2 more units before noon. A young couple furnishing their first place, and a designer buying in bulk for a client, and she handled both without dropping her margin, and she logged them clean. At the pickup desk, she caught a shipping clerk about to load the wrong finish onto a customer's cart and stopped him with a hand on the box. Walnut, not oak, she said, reading the manifest upside down. She ordered walnut. Look at the line. The clerk looked. Huh, system put oak. System's been putting oak on the East route deliveries all month. Simone frowned at the manifest. 3rd one I've caught. You want me to flag it? I'll flag it. She wrote it in her notebook. A small thing, a line among 100 lines. She did not know yet that it mattered. She wrote it because she wrote everything down and moved on. At noon, she took her break in the stairwell instead of the break room, because the break room had a television and the television was loud, and she wanted quiet to do the math. She spread it out on her knee. Rent, past due, plus the late fee the landlord had stopped waiving. Her mother's Thursday facility fee, unknown but she guessed high. Caleb's tuition deposit. The supplemental plan she had not bought. Her own commission for the month. Strong. The strongest on the floor, and still not enough to cover all 4 things at once. She could cover 3. She had built a life where she could always, barely, cover 3. Her little brother's face came up on her phone. Caleb, 18, grinning, a pencil behind his ear the way he always kept one. "See, you busy?" "Always. What's up?" "I finished the thing. The presentation drawing. You said send it when it was done." A rustle, the sound of him holding the phone wrong. "It's the whole room concept. Modular, but for small apartments, the kind you're always saying they don't make. I did the elevations and everything." Simone closed her eyes. Her brother wanted to design furniture. He had wanted it since he was 12, since he used to sit on the showroom floor after school and draw the sofas while she worked, and she had spent 6 years telling him he could and paying for the school that would let him. "Send it," she said. "I'll look tonight." "You always say tonight." "I always look. Send it." She ate half a sandwich and went back down. The afternoon light did the thing she had warned the morning couple about, sliding low through the tall west windows, catching dust. Simone was rewrapping a display cushion when Park Dae-sung came onto the floor. He did not come onto the floor often. He stayed upstairs, in the glass office over the mezzanine, where he could see everyone and no one could see his screen. When he came down, it meant something. The staff felt it before they saw him, a small straightening of backs across the room. He walked to Simone's station and waited for her to finish with the cushion. "Miss Brooks." His English was precise, unhurried, edges filed smooth. The morning sale, the modular downgrade. Here it comes, Simone thought, and set the cushion down square. The client left satisfied, she said. Full service package, rebate structured discount, my margin intact. It's in the log. I read the log. Park adjusted his glasses. I read all of them. He let that sit. Simone had learned to sit in silence with men who used it as a tool, and she waited. The Casa Real project, Park said. You submitted a concept last quarter. Small format modular. Apartments under 60 square meters. Simone's pulse changed. She kept her face still. I did. Soul saw it. 3 words. She felt them land in her chest, and she did not let them show on her face, because 6 years on the floor had taught her that wanting a thing where a manager could see you want it was how you lost it. And, she said, they are building a selection, a new division, small format retail for the American market. Park's eyes moved over the floor, over the sofas, the shelving, the little rooms without walls. I have recommended you for it. The word recommended went through her like current. She had waited 6 years for a word like that from a man like this. There is a letter, Park went on, a formal recommendation. I have written it. It goes to the executive selection with the shortlist for the division lead. Your Casa Real concept is the anchor document. He finally looked at her directly. You understand what I am telling you. You're telling me I'm on the shortlist. I am telling you your work is on the shortlist. A distinction. She caught it and filed it, and, in the flood of the moment, filed it wrong. The decision is not mine, but the recommendation is. Simone kept both hands flat on the display so they would not do anything on their own. Thank you, she said. What do you need from me? The full concept, costed, staged, with the manufacturing plan, not the pitch version, the build version. Park slid a hand into his jacket and produced a slim card with an internal address on it. Submit to this, by Friday. The selection meets next month. You'll have it Thursday. Something flickered behind the glasses. Not warmth. Assessment. Thursday, he repeated, and turned, and went back up to the glass office, and the floor exhaled behind him. Evelyn was at Simone's elbow before Park reached the stairs. What was that? She whispered. What did he say? You've got a face. I don't have a face. You've got a whole face. Simone picked up the cushion again, only to have something to do with her hands. The Casa Real concept. Soul saw it. He recommended me for the new division. Small format. The one I've been saying they need for 3 years. Evelyn's mouth opened. Simone, don't yet. But she was smiling now. She could not help it. The smile she had held all morning breaking loose. It's a short list. It's not anything. He said the recommendation is his, and the decision isn't. That's how it works, he recommends. They pick. And nobody on this floor has numbers like you. Evelyn grabbed her forearm. You built the whole small format language. It's your concept. Who else would they pick? Don't say it. I'm saying it. This is yours. Simone let herself have it, just for a second, just the length of one held breath. The division lead. Salary instead of commission. Benefits. The kind of benefits that had a facility fee line and a specialist line and a dye test line. The kind of plan that made the brochure in her bag obsolete. Her mother's Thursday would stop being a number she had to solve. Caleb's tuition would stop being a deposit she had to scrape. She could sign the supplemental plan tonight and cancel it in a month because she would not need it. For one held breath, she stood in that life. Then she put the cushion down and got back to work. Because breath held too long makes you dizzy, and she had a concept to build by Thursday. She worked the floor until close. Then she stayed. The showroom emptied. The install desk went dark. Evelyn waved from the door. 2 fingers, go get it, and left. The night cleaners came through with their carts, and Simone moved her papers to let them pass and spread them out again. She had the whole east corner of the floor to herself, the display kitchen, the long table where she did custom plans, and she covered it in paper. Casa Real. She had named it herself, 2 years ago, on the bus, watching the city go by in its small, crowded apartments where nobody could afford the deep modular units Han Living sold. A real house. A modular system that assumed you had a narrow room and a long window, and a brother who needed a corner desk. She had drawn the first version in her sales notebook. She built the full version now, the costed version, the manufacturing plan, staged and real. Somewhere past 10, her phone lit. Caleb again. Did you look? She had not. She pulled up the drawing he had sent. His small apartment room concept, the elevations, the corner unit he had drawn without knowing she was building the professional version of the same idea 40 feet away on a warehouse floor. She sat down on the display kitchen stool and looked at it a long time. It was good. It was rough and the proportions were off and the joinery would never hold, but the idea underneath it was good. It was the same idea. It was in the family, and she felt something climb into her throat. See? You there? I'm here. She cleared her throat. It's good, Caleb. You're just saying that. I don't just say that. You know I don't. She pulled the phone closer. Your corner unit. The way you cantilevered the desk off the shelving column instead of giving it its own legs. That's smart. That's a real idea. The joinery won't hold. We'll fix the joinery. But the idea's real. Silence on the line. Then, quiet. You mean it. I mean it. Listen to me. She looked out over the dark floor, the covered furniture, the whole warehouse she had walked into with a folder of hand-drawn rooms. There's a thing happening at work. I can't talk about it yet. But if it happens, it changes everything. For Mama. For you. For the school. She stopped herself. Don't tell Mama. I don't want to say it out loud yet. Say what? Nothing. Go to bed. It's late. You're still at work? I'm still at work. See? He said her name the way he used to when he was small, and she was 15, and already carrying more than 15 should. Come home. Soon. Send me the joinery detail. I'll mark it up. She hung up and went back to the paper. Near midnight, she got to the part she had been circling all night without touching. The cost model. She laid the Han Living manufacturing rates across the small format bill of materials and started running the numbers she needed to make Casa Real real, and something under the numbers did not sit right. She pulled the internal freight sheet, the one the sales floor could see but never looked at, the routing and depot table for the incoming stock. She was only after the landed cost per unit. She needed it to price Casa Real honestly, the way she had priced the morning couple, the number that was hers to give and not theirs to lose. She ran her finger down the depot column. She almost missed it. The sheet was dense, 100 rows of manufacturer codes and freight rates, the kind of table nobody on the floor ever opened because the floor did not care where the stock slept before it arrived. Simone cared tonight only because Casa Real had to be priced honestly, and honest pricing meant landed cost, and landed cost meant tracing every unit back through the depots to the boat, the East Route deliveries. the ones the system kept flagging oak instead of walnut. The ones she had caught 3 times this month. They all came through the same 2 depots, and the landed cost on the East Route stock was higher, noticeably higher, than the identical units that came through the West depots. Same product, same manufacturer code. Different depot, different price, and the difference was not small. Simone sat very still. She did not know what it meant. It probably meant nothing. Freight was freight. Depots charged differently. There were 100 boring reasons. She was tired and it was midnight and she had a concept to finish and a mother to drive to a cardiologist in 3 days. But she wrote it down. She wrote the depot codes in her sales notebook and the 2 cost columns side by side, and she drew a line between them, the way she drew a line between a room and its light. Then she turned the page and went back to Casa Real, because that was the thing that mattered. That was the thing that changed everything. She finished the concept at 2 in the morning. She read it once, all the way through, and it was the best thing she had ever made. Costed, staged, buildable. Every objection Soul could raise, she had answered a page before they could raise it. The manufacturing plan used equipment Han Living already owned. The margins held even at the low price point, because she had built the whole thing around the rebate structure she had invented on a napkin 6 years ago. It was not a pitch. It was a business, finished, waiting for someone to say yes. Her name on every page, the small format system for the narrow room and the long window, and the brother with the corner desk. She squared the pages and slid them into a clean folder and wrote Casa Real, S. Brooks on the tab in the block letters Caleb had gotten from her. She held the folder a moment. Then she reached into her bag, past the wallet, past the phone, to the inside pocket with the zipper, and took out the pharmacy brochure. The supplemental health plan. She unfolded it on the display kitchen counter under the one light still on, and read the monthly number one more time, the number she had not been able to make room for. She took out her pen. She filled in the top line. Her name, her mother as the covered dependent. She got that far, to the signature block, and stopped, because signing meant the number started now, this month, on top of the rent and the deposit, and the thing at work had not happened yet. It was a short list. Park had said the decision was not his. She capped the pen. She folded the brochure along its worn creases and put it back in the zippered pocket, unsigned, one more night, and she told herself Friday. Submit Casa Real Thursday, hear back, and if the letter did what a letter like that does, she would sign the plan the same afternoon and never think about the number again. Simone gathered her papers, killed the last light, and walked out through the dark showroom past the covered furniture and the name in low letters over the door. Her phone buzzed on the way to the bus. Her mother, who never slept. You still up, baby? Just leaving work, Mama. This late? A pause. The papery sound of a page. You working on something? Something good? Simone stepped out into the cold and did not feel it. Something that's going to fix things. I can't say yet, but soon. You always take care of everybody but you. That's the job, Mama. She could see the bus coming, headlights swinging across the wet street. Thursday I'm driving you. I already cleared it. Don't call the office about the insurance. I'll handle the facility myself. Simone. Mama. Whatever it is. Lorraine's voice went soft, the way it did right before it went true. You be sure they see you. All these years you make everybody else look good. You be sure somebody sees you. Simone stood at the bus stop with the folder against her chest, Casa Real, S. Brooks facing in, and did not answer for a moment, because her mother had a way of putting a finger exactly on the thing. They see me, Mama, she said. This time they see me. The bus doors opened. She did not know, stepping up into the light, that the recommendation letter Park Dae-sung had written and shown her was already on his desk under a second document she would never be shown, or that the block letters on her folder tab would soon matter more than the concept inside it, or that a man with a tiger on his neck was landing at the airport that week and had never heard her name. She rode home with the folder on her knees and her mother's words in her ears and the depot numbers still open in her notebook, and she planned out Thursday, every hour of it, the way she planned everything, so that nothing would slip. She had planned for everything, except the thing that was coming. The cardiologist's office ran 2 hours behind, and Simone spent every minute of it doing math she already knew the answer to. Lorraine sat beside her with a magazine she never turned a page of. The contrast test came back clean enough to schedule the real one. The installation fee cleared on Simone's card in the waiting room, a number she watched leave the balance in real time, and she smiled at her mother like it was nothing. "You're quiet," Lorraine said. "I'm counting my chickens." "Since when do you count chickens?" "Since Friday." Simone folded the appointment slip into the notebook next to the depot columns she still hadn't stopped thinking about. "Something at work. I told you, it could be real." Lorraine put a hand on her knee. "You garner attention like you garner sales." Quietly, then all at once, Simone dropped her mother home, drove the concept folder across town herself, and left it at the internal address on the card Park had given her. A young man in a lanyard took it without looking up. She almost said something. She didn't. She let the folder go and watched the door close on it. Casa Real, S. Brooks in block letters on the tab, facing away from her now. That was Thursday. By Monday, the salon had changed shape. She noticed it from the bus stop. The long east window had a banner rolled across the top of it, cream and gold, and there were balloons, actual balloons, tethered to the display units near the entrance. Someone had strung lights along the mezzanine rail. Han Living didn't do balloons. Park didn't do lights. Simone stood on the curb with her sales notebook under her arm and felt her stomach do something small and wrong. Evelyn met her at the doors. "Did you know about this?" Evelyn's voice was pitched low. "They sent a whole crew at 6 a.m. There's a caterer setting up in receiving." "A caterer? For a furniture store?" Evelyn adjusted her glasses. "Somebody's making an announcement, and nobody told the floor what it is. You'd think you'd know." "I'd think I'd know," Simone said. She put her things in her locker. She kept the notebook. She smoothed the terracotta blouse at the waist and checked the mirror the way she always did, and for 1 second she let herself believe the mirror. 6 years, the napkin, half the training deck, the recommendation on Park's desk, the concept in a folder with her name in the letters her brother had learned to make from watching her. "Destavez mi vein," she'd told her mother. "This time they see me." The floor filled by 10, not with customers, with staff, the installation crew, the warehouse pullers, the design associates, faces she knew, and a dozen she half knew from other shifts. Park came down the mezzanine stairs at 10:15, wearing a suit she hadn't seen before, gray on gray, a silver tie, and he stood near the balloons with his hands folded and waited for the room to quiet without asking it to. Beside him stood a man she'd never seen. Tall. A dark suit cut close, an ivory shirt open at the collar. He held himself like the room already belonged to him, and he was deciding whether to keep it. When he turned his head to say something to Park, the light caught the side of his neck, and Simone saw the ink there, the shape of it running up from under his collar toward his ear. A tiger. She didn't know his name yet. She would learn it in 90 seconds and never forget it. Park lifted a hand. The room went still. "Thank you all for coming." His English was precise, unhurried. Han Living has served this market for 8 years, this location for 6. His eyes moved across the floor and did not stop on Simone. Seoul has decided the next chapter of that story here should be led by family. Someone near the front started to clap and thought better of it. "It is my privilege," Park said, "to introduce the new director of American Retail Operations, Han Min-jae." The applause came then, and it came fast, because a room that doesn't know what else to do with itself claps. Simone heard it start behind her and roll forward, the warehouse guys first, loud, the way men are loud when relief is available. Evelyn didn't move. Simone didn't move. Han Min-jae stepped forward half a pace and inclined his head. He didn't smile. He looked out over the floor the way you look at inventory. "Thank you," he said. That was all. A room applauded a man for saying thank you. Simone's notebook was still under her arm. She was aware of it, the way you become aware of a hand or a foot, some part of you that had a purpose a second ago and now just hung there. Director of American Retail Operations. The new division, small format. Her division. The one built on a concept she'd named on a bus 2 years ago and costed out until 2 in the morning 4 days back. She looked for the folder, stupidly, as if it would be somewhere on the floor with the balloons. She looked at Park instead, and Park was looking at Han Min-jae. and the recommendation letter she'd been told about lived somewhere in a building she'd delivered her whole future to, under a second document she would never see. The clapping thinned. People started to drift toward the caterers' tables. Evelyn found her voice first, close to Simone's ear. "There's a mistake. There's no mistake. Simone, there's no mistake," Simone said again, and the flatness of it made Evelyn stop. She stayed on the floor because leaving in that first minute would have been a thing people saw, and she was not going to be a thing people saw. She took a plastic cup of something sparkling off a tray and held it and did not drink it. The room resolved into its parts. The warehouse crew clustered by the caterer's table, loud again, already deciding the new director was fine, a good sign. Family money meant the doors stayed open and the checks kept coming. The design associates hovered nearer the mezzanine, quieter, doing the arithmetic that people who make things do when they watch a maker get passed over. One of them caught Simone's eye and mouthed something she couldn't read and didn't ask her to repeat. She turned the cup a quarter turn in her hand and set her attention on breathing. In through the count of 4. Hold, out. It was the same thing she taught nervous customers to do before they signed for a piece that cost more than they'd planned. Slow the body and the mind follows. Her body was not following. Her heart was doing the thing Lorraine's heart was scheduled to be tested for, and she pressed the cool cup against the inside of her wrist and made it stop. 2 associates from the weekend shift came up to her. "Careful, the way you approach after a death. You built half of what he's about to run," one of them said quietly. "He's the boss's son," said the other, as if that answered it. It did answer it. The sparkling drink went flat in her hand. Someone had put music on, low, the kind of playlist that plays in stores to make people spend, and it was playing now for the staff, as if the staff were customers, as if the whole floor had been staged into a party so that no one would notice it was a funeral for one job that had never officially existed. Han Min-jae worked the room the way heirs do, a few words each, no words wasted. Simone watched him without watching him. He shook the hand of the head warehouse puller and asked a question, and actually listened to the answer, and she hated that she noticed he listened, because it would have been easier if he were only a suit. Park came to her at 10:40. He didn't lead with anything. He stood beside her and looked at the room with her, and for a moment they were 2 people surveying the same floor, which they were not. "You delivered the concept," he said. "It was received well." "By whom?" "By Soul." He turned the cup in her hand a fraction with his eyes, noted it was full, said nothing about it. "Your work is the foundation of this division. That is not in question." "My work. Mr. Han will need support to launch it. Someone who understands the floor, the customer, the system. He let a pause do part of the work. He'll need to be trained. I would like that person to be you." There it was. She had imagined this moment for 4 days in a shape so different she almost laughed. In the shape she'd imagined, Park said her name and the room turned, and she stepped into a life with a salary and benefits and a supplemental plan she could finally sign. In the real shape, Park was asking her to teach a stranger to drive the car she'd built, from the passenger seat, for the same commission she'd earned for 6 years. "Train him," she said. "Onboard him. 90 days. There would be a stipend." Park named a number. It was not nothing. It was designed to not be nothing, so that refusing it would look like pride. A stipend. It is more than most associates make in a quarter. For teaching him what took me 6 years to learn, she kept her eyes on the balloons, not on Park. For handing him the language, the deck, the way you read a couple when they say the bigger one and mean the cheaper one, you want me to give him that. I want you to build something durable, with protection, with a paycheck that does not depend on whether Tuesday is slow. Park spoke like a man reading terms he considered generous. "You have a mother whose care is not free. I am not blind to your situation, Simone. This offer sees it. It answers it." That was the sentence that did it, if she had to name one. This offer sees it. He had used the word without knowing he was using it. Everyone kept telling her to be seen, and here was the seeing, and it came shaped like a leash. Simone. First time he'd used her name in the conversation, maybe the second time in a month. This is how it works. The family leads. The talent supports the family. You would have influence, access, over time. Over time. I understand it is not what you pictured. He almost sounded like he meant it. But I recommended you, and this is the result. And the result includes a place for you. A good place. Most people in this room would take it and be grateful. She looked at him then, full on, and something in her face made him stop talking. You recommended me, she said. I did. For the division. For a role in the division. The distinction landed like a stone going into deep water. No splash, just gone, and the surface closing over it. He recommended her for a role in the division, not the division. She'd built the whole sentence around a word that had never been there. Your work is on the short list, not you. She heard it again the way she should have heard it the first time. No, Simone said. Park blinked. Once. I'm sorry? No, I won't train him. Her voice stayed even. That was the thing she'd remember later, that it stayed even the whole time. I won't take the stipend. Thank you for the recommendation. You're being emotional. I'm being clear. If you walk away from this, there is no version where it comes back. He kept his voice down, which was a courtesy, or a warning. You understand that there is no better offer behind this one. This is the offer. I understand. Simone. I understand, she said, a third time, and something in the third time closed the door. Park looked at her for a long moment. Then he did the thing that told her everything, which was that he nodded, straightened his silver tie, and walked toward Han Min-jae to introduce him to someone else. He had already spent as much of himself on her as the situation required. The math was done. She set the untouched cup on the nearest surface. She did not cry, and she did not raise her voice, and she did not go to Han Min-jae and make a scene he would remember. What she did was walk to the supply station behind the design desk, where the empty boxes were kept for customer returns, and take one. A medium one. She carried it back across the floor, past the balloons, and nobody stopped her, because a woman carrying a box in a furniture store is the most invisible thing in the world. At her station, she began to pack. The photo first. Her, Lorraine, and Caleb at the county fair 3 summers ago, in a cheap frame she'd bought at the drugstore, the only personal thing she'd ever allowed on the sales floor. She wrapped it in a sheet of tissue from the gift wrap roll and set it in the box. Then the mug. World's okayest salesperson. A joke gift from Evelyn 2 Christmases back, chipped at the handle. She'd kept coffee in it every morning for 2 years. She poured out the cold inch of it into the plant nobody watered, and put the mug beside the photo. Then the notebook. Not the sales one. That one stayed in her hand. The other one, the older one, the training log where she'd worked out the disconto structure in the 2nd year. The napkin math copied over in ink so it wouldn't fade. She'd meant to leave it to whoever came after her. She put it in the box. Whoever came after her had just been applauded for saying thank you. Her fingers found the small things last. A rubber band ball she'd built over 4 years from the bands off produce and paperwork, a thing her hands did while her mouth closed sales. A folded thank you note from a customer 2 years back. Because of you, my daughter has a desk to do her homework at, that she'd kept taped inside the drawer where no one could see it. She peeled it free and read it once and set it in the box face down, because reading it twice would have finished her. The drawer was empty then. 6 years fit in a drawer, and the drawer fit in a box, and the box weighed nothing. Evelyn appeared at the edge of the station. Don't, Evelyn said. Not like this. Fight it. Go over Park's head. Call Sol yourself. I'll get you the... With what, Ev? Simone folded the flaps of the box down, not sealing them, just closing them. The concept has my name on a tab in a folder in a building I'll never be let into again. The recommendation letter is Park's. Everything I built on this floor belongs to the floor. I own the box. She lifted it. It weighed almost nothing. I own the box, and I'm taking it home. They can't do this. They did it. It's 10:50 on a Monday. It's done. Evelyn's eyes were wet behind the amber frames. Simone's were not, and she needed them not to be, because the walk she was about to take required them not to be. Sign the plan, Evelyn said suddenly. Whatever it was you were waiting on, the insurance thing, sign it today, before Cobra, before... I can't afford it today, Simone said, gentle, and the ordinariness of the sentence was the cruelest thing in the room. She could afford it exactly on the salary she'd just refused. That was the joke. That was the whole joke. She put the box on her hip and turned toward the doors. The floor was full of people who had clapped. Some of them were her friends. Most of them had eaten the caterer's food already and were talking about weekend things, because the announcement was over and the free lunch was the part they actually understood. A few of them saw her with the box. A few of them looked away, which was its own kind of mercy or its own kind of cowardice. She'd never decide which. She walked. It was maybe 40 feet from her station to the entrance, past the modular units she'd sold 100 times, past Unit 42 and Unit 38 sitting side by side in the display, past the long east window where the light would cut through after 2 o'clock and land on a floor she wouldn't be standing on. She walked it at a normal pace. She would not hurry, because hurrying was for people who were being chased, and she was not being chased. She was leaving. Han Min-jae saw her. She felt it before she confirmed it. That specific weight of being looked at by someone who has no obligation to look. She was almost at the doors when she let her eyes go to him, once, because she wanted to see the face of the man they'd chosen over the work. He was watching her cross the floor with the box. He didn't know who she was. She could see that in the flat attention of it, the way you note a thing you don't have a name for. To him, she was a woman leaving with a box on the morning of his announcement, and something about it had caught him, because he'd stopped mid-sentence with the head warehouse puller and turned his head to follow her, and the ink on his neck moved with the turn. For 1 second they looked at each other across the whole length of the floor. She gave him nothing, not contempt, which he'd have understood, and not tears, which he'd have pitied. She gave him a stranger's face and the back of her shoulder, and she pushed through the glass doors into the noise of the street. The doors closed behind her on the balloons, and the lights and the caterer and the man with the tiger on his neck, who had just been handed her life and did not know it. Outside, the air was ordinary, traffic, a delivery truck idling. The world had not been informed that anything had happened, and it went on not knowing. Simone stood on the curb with the box on her hip. Now the hands shook, now when there was no one to see them. She set the box on the low wall by the entrance, the same wall she'd sat on to do her math 4 nights ago, and she pressed both palms flat against the top of the box until they stopped. She took out her phone. She did not call her mother. She could not put this into Lorraine's ears yet, not with the heart test scheduled, not with the words "garner someone who sees you" still fresh in the woman's mouth. She scrolled past Lorraine's name. She scrolled past Caleb's. She called nobody. She put the phone away. A woman came out of the store behind her, a customer, an actual customer, with a fabric swatch in her hand, and asked Simone where the modular corner desks were, because Simone was standing near the entrance and looked like she knew. And she did know. She knew the aisle and the price and the 10-year structure warranty and the fact that the walnut ran 2 weeks longer than the oak. For half a second, the whole script sat ready in her mouth, 6 years of it, muscle and habit. "This isn't my store," Simone said. The woman apologized and went back in. Simone watched the glass door swing shut and thought, "That's the last time anyone asks me that in there." The thought didn't hurt the way she expected. It just sat in her chest, cold and clear, a fact among facts. Then she picked the box back up and she started to walk toward the bus stop, and halfway there she stopped, because a car had pulled to the curb beside her, slow, matching her pace, and the window was coming down. It was not a car she knew. Black, low, expensive in the quiet way. The rear window came down and Park's face was not in it. It was the young man from the internal address, the one who'd taken her folder without looking up, and he was looking up now. Miss Brooks. He had a soft voice and an accent she couldn't place. "Mr. Han would like a word." "Before you go." Simone stood on the sidewalk with the box against her hip and the notebook in her free hand, the one with the depot columns still open inside it, the 2 costs sitting side by side, the numbers she'd never explained to anyone. "Which Mr. Han?" she said. The young man's mouth moved, not quite a smile. "The one you just walked past." She looked back at the store. Through the glass, past the balloons, she could see him, Han Min-jae, standing where she'd left him, watching the street now, watching the car, watching her decide. "Tell him," Simone said, "I don't work here anymore. He knows." The young man opened the door from the inside. It swung toward her, an invitation and a wall at the same time. That's why he wants the word. The box was heavy now, in a way it hadn't been on the floor. Or her arms had stopped pretending. Somewhere across town, her mother was folding laundry with a heart that needed a test she'd just paid for out of a balance that would not refill this month. Somewhere her brother was sketching a cantilever desk for apartments that a company had just handed to a stranger. And here, at the curb, a door stood open into a car she had every reason to refuse. She thought about the letters on the folder tab, S. Brooks, facing away from her now, in a building she'd never enter, under a document she'd never read. She did not get in the car. She did not walk away either. "He can have his word," Simone said, and she set the box down on the low wall between herself and the open door, deliberately, so that it sat there like a thing she was not yet willing to carry into anything. "Out here, where I can see the street." The young man glanced back into the car. Whatever passed between him and the man behind the glass took 2 seconds. Then the front door opened, and Han Min-jae stepped out onto the sidewalk in his dark suit and his ivory collar, into the ordinary traffic noise of the street, and for the first time he stood close enough that she could see his eyes were not cold, only unreadable, which was worse. He looked at the box on the wall. He looked at the notebook in her hand. "You named it," he said. "Not a question. Casa Real." Simone's fingers tightened on the notebook. "Who told you that?" she said. He didn't answer. He looked at her the way you look at a number that doesn't reconcile, a landed cost that's higher than it should be, a walnut flagged as oak. And she understood, standing on that curb with her whole life in a box she wouldn't pick up, that whatever he wanted, it was not to say thank you. Behind them, through the glass, the balloons drifted against the ceiling and the caterer began to clear the plates, and the announcement was already old news to everyone inside. Out on the street, it hadn't even started. "I don't want your thanks," Simone said, "and you don't have mine." Min-jae looked at the notebook in her hand, then at her face. He wasn't used to being finished with. "You named the thing they built for me," he said. "I'd want to know who did that." "Now you know." She lifted the box off the wall. "Congratulations on the division." She turned before he could answer. The last thing he saw was the back of her head and the cardboard corner of a family photo poking out of the top. The last thing she heard was the car door closing behind her, soft, expensive, final. She walked to the bus stop and did not look at the glass doors again. That was the last time either of them stood in that building. 3 years is a long time to carry a box. The warehouse on the south edge of the district had no banner over the door and no name lit in low letters. It had a hand-painted board, Segunda Casa, that Caleb had lettered himself in block capitals, because those were the only capitals anyone in the family made. Segunda Casa, second house. The joke had 2 floors of meaning, and neither of them was funny anymore. Simone was under a workbench with a wrench when the phone started ringing. She didn't come out for it. Her hands were black to the wrist. The lower rail of a display unit had cracked at the joint. Their own unit, their own joint, the kind of failure she used to catch in other people's furniture from across a showroom, and she was not going to let a customer see it Saturday with a crack in it. So she stayed under the bench and let it ring. The olive coverall was worn pale at both knees. The boots had a split across the right toe she'd taped twice. She wore a brown belt with a wrench looped through it now, instead of a notebook, because the notebook lived in the office drawer these days, and the office was a corner with a door that didn't close. "You're bleeding," Caleb said from the doorway. "I'm not. Your knuckle." She looked. He was right. She pressed it to the coverall and kept turning the bolt. 21 now, her brother, filled out through the shoulders, an apron over his clothes, and a pencil where the pencil always was. He'd deferred the second year. He said it was his idea. She let him keep saying it. "Evelyn's on the phone," he said. "3rd time. Tell her I'll call back." "She says don't tell her that." Simone came out from under the bench. Evelyn Price ran their front of house now, their scheduling, their books, their everything, the same skills, a 10th of the salary, because Simone couldn't pay her what she was worth, and Evelyn had walked out of Han Living 6 weeks after Simone did, and never explained why to anyone but Simone. She was on the shop line with her glasses pushed up into her braids and a printout in her fist. "They're gone," Evelyn said. "Who's gone?" "Han Living. The flagship. There's plywood on the windows." She turned the printout around, like Simone could read it through the phone. 3 suppliers pulled out this week. There's a class action about the frames splitting. Banks froze 2 accounts. It's on the trade sites. Simone, the whole American arm is coming down. Simone wiped her hands on a rag that made them no cleaner. She should have felt something. She waited to feel something. Okay, she said. Okay, that's it? What do you want me to say, Ev? I want you to say something. Evelyn's voice dropped. You built the thing they're burying. You should get to watch. I've got a cracked rail for a Saturday delivery, Simone said. That's what I get to watch. She hung up before it could turn into the other conversation, the one where Evelyn said the word promotion and Simone said don't. She went back under the bench. The bolt stripped. She swore at it, quiet, and Caleb pretended not to hear. They ate lunch standing up. There was a stack of envelopes on the office desk that Simone had stopped opening by daylight. The rent on the warehouse had gone up in January. The line of credit had a ceiling she could see from here. Their mother's cardiologist had moved her to a medication that worked, thank God, that worked, and cost what it cost. And Simone paid it the way you pay the thing that keeps your mother alive. First, without looking, before anything else got its turn. She had a business now. She had her name on the board. She had made it hers, all of it, every joint and every invoice, and it was drowning her slower than the salary job would have, and that was the whole difference between the two lives. Slower. At 4, a black car parked across the street from the warehouse and did not leave. Caleb noticed it first. That's been there an hour. Simone looked through the office window. The car meant nothing to her. Cars parked on that street. But it sat too still, and the driver never got out, and when the delivery van pulled up to their loading door at 4:30, the black car edged forward 10 feet to keep the door in its sight line. Probably scouting the block, she said. The lots go cheap here. They closed at 6. Caleb left at 6:15 for the community college night section he still went to. Evelyn left at 6:30 with the deposit bag she took to the drop, because Simone didn't like her walking with it. Simone stayed. Simone always stayed. At 7, the loading door was still up because the compressor ran hot and she was letting the shop cool. She was at the long bench sanding the repaired rail by hand, back to the door, when the light on the concrete changed. A shape stood in the loading door. Long coat. Against the streetlight she couldn't see a face. We're closed, she said without turning. Front's locked, but there's nothing to buy here anyway. I didn't come to buy furniture. She knew the voice before she placed it. It had thickened in 3 years, gone flatter, lost the small hesitation it used to carry. She set the sanding block down and turned around with the rail still in her other hand. Han Min-jae stood in her loading door, in a black overcoat with the collar open. He'd changed the way money changes a man who used to only wear it and now commands it. The suit under the coat was dark and open at the throat. There were 2 men behind him on the street, near the black car, not coming in, just there, the way weather is there. His watch caught the shop light. His hands were still. You're a hard woman to find, he said. I'm in the phone book. She didn't move toward him. You're not. Something moved at the corner of his mouth that wasn't a smile. No, he said. Not anymore. She'd read enough to fill in the blank he was leaving. Everyone in the trade had read it. Han Living hadn't just failed in America. The family that owned it had been rearranged, back in Seoul, in the way families like that got rearranged, quietly, then not quietly. The man in front of her hadn't run a furniture division in a long time. The word people used now, when they used a word at all, was not the word for a retail director. They said the flagship closed today, she said. It did. And you came here. I came here first. She let that sit. He stepped 1 boot length inside the loading door and stopped, like he'd learned that the room was hers and he had to be asked past that line. He looked at the shop, the raw racks, the 2 finished units under a drop cloth, the hand-lettered board she could see the back of, the tape on her boot. He looked at her hands, black to the wrist. You made all this, he said. Don't what? Don't do the thing where you're impressed. She set the rail on the bench. You did it on the sidewalk 3 years ago, and it didn't buy you anything then either. He took that without a flinch. That was new too. The Min-jae in the showroom had been a decoration. This one had edges. I have a proposal, he said. No. You haven't heard it. I heard the last one your company made me. 90 days and a stipend to teach my job to a man who got my division. She pulled the rag off the belt and worked at a knuckle that wouldn't come clean. I'm not a training program, Mr. Han. I'm booked through the fall. You're 3 months from closing, he said. The rag stopped. He said it without cruelty, which was worse than cruelty. He'd looked at her books somehow, or looked at the shape of them from the outside, the way he'd learned to look at things. She hated that he was right, and she hated more that her face had told him he was right, before she got it back under control. You don't know my numbers, she said. I know the rent on this block went up. I know your line of credit. I know your mother's on cardiac medication that isn't cheap, and I know you pay it first. He said it flat. A ledger read aloud. I didn't come to insult you with it. I came because I need someone who can see a thing the way you see it, and there's exactly one of you. There were a lot of me, she said. You people got rid of all of them. For a moment, neither of them said anything. The compressor kicked off. The shop went quiet enough to hear the streetlight buzz. Tell me the proposal, she said, so I can say no to the real one. He reached into the coat. The two men by the car shifted, and Simone's stomach did something cold, and then his hand came out holding paper, only paper, folded once. He set it on the end of the bench and stepped back from it. He'd learned that too, that you put the thing down and let the other person pick it up. Han Living America is finished, he said, the retail arm. But there are 12 stores that haven't been announced yet. Leases, buildings, inventory, the small format concept, all of it still exists on paper. In 45 days, the family votes on what happens to it. Sell it for parts. Or keep it, under new terms, under a name people can trust again. Under yours. Under whoever can show the board it's worth keeping. He nodded at the paper. That's a contract. 45 days. You come look at what broke. Not to fix the furniture. To tell me why 12 stores worth of it broke at the same time when the design didn't change. You find that, I have something to put in front of the family. You don't. You walk away paid, and your business doesn't close in the fall. 12 stores. She heard the number, and something in the back of her mind moved, slow, an old anomaly turning over in its sleep. She didn't let it reach her face. She picked up the paper instead. She read it twice, the way she read everything twice now, once for what it said, and once for what it did. The frames didn't fail because of the design, she said, half to herself. I'd stake the shop on that. That's why I'm here. She kept reading. The money at the bottom of the page was real money. It was 3 months of rent and her mother's medication through spring, and Caleb's second year, and the split boot replaced, and it was Han money, and it was Han money that came with 2 men standing by a car on her street. She put the contract down. No, she said. He'd expected the money to do it. She watched him recalibrate, and she got a small, ugly satisfaction from watching it, because for years, men like him had assumed the number was the argument. I'm not asking you to trust me, he said. Good. Because I don't. She came around the end of the bench, wiping her hands, and stopped a body's length from him. Up close, he was taller than the showroom memory, and tired under the money, in a way the showroom man had never been allowed to look. You want to know why 12 stores broke? So do I. I've wanted to know for 3 years. But I'm not doing it your way, in your building, with your men watching my loading door. Then tell me the way. She heard herself take the breath before she spoke, and part of her stood off to the side and said quietly that she was about to walk back into the exact house she'd carried a box out of. She spoke anyway. My conditions, she said. You don't get to change one. Say them. 1. Nobody at those stores reports that I'm working for you. I go in as an outside consultant, my company, my invoice. Segunda casa, not Han. Done. 2. I keep everything I find, copies, records, all of it, in my hands, off your servers. You get what I choose to show you, and I decide when. His jaw worked. That's a lot of trust in the other direction. That's not trust, that's insurance. She held up a third finger, black at the knuckle. 3. Those men outside come nowhere near this warehouse again. My brother works here. My family comes here. You want me on your street? You keep yours off mine. Done. 4. She let this one land slow. The day I find something you don't want the family to see, you don't get to bury it. If it's true, it comes out. I'm not doing this to hand you a clean story. I'm doing it because I built that concept in the back of a bus, and I want to know who broke it. That one cost him something. She watched it cost him. He looked at the drop cloth, at the 2 finished units under it, at the board with his own division's ghost lettered on it in her brother's block capitals, and she understood that he'd walked in here with a story he wanted, and she'd just told him he might not get it. "And if what you find is bad for me," he said, "then it's bad for you." The streetlight buzzed. Somewhere on the block a dog started and stopped. 45 days, he said finally. "You'll have moved through all 12? "I'll start with the 2 that broke worst." She thought of the notebook in the office drawer, the 2 columns she'd copied out at 2 in the morning 3 years ago, the routes, the depots, the same product at 2 different landed costs. She did not tell him about it. "Insurance. I know where I'd look first." "Where?" "That's condition 2, she said. "I keep what I find." For the first time since he'd stepped into the door, something in his face changed that wasn't calculation. It might have been respect. She didn't want it to be, so she picked up the contract and folded it back along its crease. "I'll sign a version my lawyer writes," she said, "not yours. Have your people ready to look at it Monday." "You have a lawyer?" "I have Evelyn, and Evelyn has a cousin who passed the bar, and between them they'll write you a document that'll ruin your weekend." She held the folded paper out to him. "Take yours back. I don't sign the first thing anyone puts on my bench. I learned that from your company." He took it. Their hands didn't touch. He looked at her a beat longer than the exchange needed, and she let him, because she'd stopped being afraid of being looked at a long time ago. "Why are you saying yes?" he asked. "You could let it close. You could let all of it close and watch." She thought about lying. She was good at the salesroom answer, the one that gave the customer what they came in wanting to hear. "Because you're going to look whether I help or not," she said, "and you'll look wrong, and whoever broke those 12 stores will walk while you chase the design. And I'm the only person left who knows the design didn't break." She picked up the sanding block again. "That's not for you. Understand that. Nothing I do in the next 45 days is for you." "I understand," he said. The words landed strange in the shop. She'd said those same 2 words 3 times in a decorated showroom 3 years ago, to his director, and meant the opposite of understanding every time. She wondered if he knew that. She decided he didn't. She decided a lot of things about him in that second, and reserved the right to be wrong about all of them. "Monday," she said, "your people, Evelyn's document." He nodded once and stepped back over the line into the loading door, back into the streetlight, and for a moment he was a silhouette again, exactly the way he'd been when she turned around, a shape she couldn't read. Then he turned and the shape resolved into a man walking to a car, and the car pulled off, and the 2 men went with it, and her street was hers again. Simone stood in the loading door and watched the taillights until they turned. Then her hand, the one holding the sanding block, started to shake. She watched it the way you watch someone else's hand. She set the block down before it could betray more of her, and she pulled the loading door down herself, hand over hand, the chain cold, until the shop was closed and the street was gone. She should have called Evelyn. She should have called Caleb back to the shop and told him what she'd just agreed to, that there was Han money and Han men and a Han in a black coat back in her life, on a 45-day clock. She should have driven to her mother's and said none of it, and looked at her mother's face and remembered why she'd taken it. She did none of those things yet. She went to the office. The drawer stuck the way it always stuck. She worked it open and lifted out the old sales notebook, the one with the training structure in ink and the 2 columns copied on a 2 a.m. page, the depots, the routes, the same code, the wrong wood. She hadn't opened to that page in 3 years. She'd told herself it was nothing. She'd told herself a stranger's furniture was a stranger's problem now. 12 stores broke at the same time when the design didn't change. She sat down on the office stool with the notebook open on her black-fingered hands and read her own 3-year-old handwriting like it belonged to someone who'd known something she was only now allowed to know. The east routes, 2 depots, a landed cost that made no sense for identical stock. She turned the page. The next one was blank. She found a pen that worked, and at the top, in block capitals because those were the only capitals she made, she wrote a single line and underlined it twice. Who owns the 2 depots? She looked at it for a long time. Outside, 3 miles across the district, the plywood was still going up over a showroom window under a name in low letters, and somewhere a family was counting down 45 days to a vote, and none of them knew that the woman who'd named the thing they were about to sell for parts had just written the first question at the top of a clean page. She closed the notebook. She did not put it back in the drawer. She put it in the inside pocket of her coat, the one with the zipper, and she zipped it shut. Evelyn's cousin ruined his weekend. By Monday morning, there were 9 pages on the office desk, and Evelyn stood over them with a red pen behind her ear and the look of a woman who'd found her calling 3 years late. He agreed to all of it, she said. All 4. The consultant cover, the copies clause, the men, the disclosure. His lawyer only fought the last one, and your document won. He didn't fight it, Simone said. He wanted it on paper so he could tell himself he was brave. You're doing this. Evelyn set the pen down. It wasn't a question, the way nothing important ever was with her. You're really walking back into Han. I'm walking into 12 stores that aren't Han yet. Simone signed the last page. Her signature came out in the same block capitals as everything else, and she looked at it for a second. At S. Brooks on a Han contract again, and then she capped the pen. There's a difference for 45 days. Caleb came in with 2 coffees and no questions, which was how she knew Evelyn had told him. He set 1 cup by her hand and looked at the signed pages and said only, "You want me on the shop while you're out?" "I want you on the shop like it's yours," she said, "because it is, if this goes wrong." He didn't argue. He'd grown into a man who understood what a sentence like that cost to say. The first store was 90 minutes north, in a strip that had been built for a chain that never came. It had the small format layout she'd drawn on a bus. She saw it the second she walked in, her own logic in the sightlines, the modular walls stepping down toward the register the way she'd argued they should 3 years and a lifetime ago, and it made her stop 1 full second inside the door before she got her face back. A man in a Han polo intercepted her at the mouth of the floor. Store manager, mid-40s, keys on a lanyard, a clipboard he was using as a wall. "We're not taking walk-ins," he said. "Liquidation's not scheduled. You'll have to." Simone Brooks, Segunda Casa. She held up the consultant letter, her letterhead, her name, no Han anywhere on it. "I'm here on the frame inspection. You should have an email." "I don't take emails from vendors." The clipboard came up another inch. "I don't know you." "No," said a voice behind her. "You don't." The manager's face did the thing every face in that company had always done when the voice arrived. Min Jae came in from the parking lot in the dark coat, unhurried, and the manager's clipboard dropped to his side like a flag coming down. Whatever the man had been told about who ran things now, his body knew it before his mouth caught up. "She goes anywhere she wants," Min Jae said. "She opens anything she asks to open. You give her the delivery logs for the last 2 years, the depot manifests, and the return records, today, and you don't ask her a single question about why." He let it sit. "Is that clear?" "Yes, Mr. Han." "Then, she doesn't need me standing here." He looked at Simone, and there was the recalibrated thing in his face again, the not quite respect she kept refusing. "Condition 3, he said, quieter, for her. "I'll be in the car. Off your floor." "It's not my floor. It's more yours than his," Min Jae said, and went back out to the lot. The manager led her to a back office that smelled of cardboard and printer heat, unlocked a cabinet, and left her the manifests because a man in a black coat had told him to. Simone set her coffee down. She pulled the notebook from the zippered pocket, opened it to the page that said, "Who owns the 2 depots?" in her own underlined capitals, and laid it flat, beside a stack of 2 years of delivery logs for a store that had broken worse than any of the others. She ran her finger down the first manifest to the routing column. The depot code at the top of the page was one of the 2 she'd copied out at 2 in the morning, 3 years ago, in a warehouse that wasn't hers yet. Her finger stopped on it. She didn't call out to the lot. She didn't write anything down. She turned to the next manifest, and the same code was at the top of that one too. Simone stacked the manifests by store, then by month, then by the code at the top. By the 3rd stack, she stopped reading names and started reading the header line only. 2 depots. She had 2 depots in her notebook, and here they were on paper, printed, official, signed by clerks who had no idea they were signing anything. She pulled the store's return logs next, frames cracking. She ran a finger down the defect column and matched dates to arrivals. Every cracked unit had come off a manifest that opened with one of the two codes. Every clean unit had come off a manifest that did not. She wrote nothing on the manifests. She wrote in the notebook, small, in the corner, where the spine hid it if the book fell open. Then she closed the book and zipped the pocket. The store gerente stood in the doorway with his arms folded. He had been standing there for 20 minutes. "You are finished," he said. It was not a question either. "No," Simone said. "I need the freight invoices." "Those are not here. They're wherever you file what you pay." She looked up. "You pay someone to move this stock. That someone sends a bill. Get me the bills." He looked past her, toward the lot, toward the black car that had not moved. Then he left and came back with a folder that had been in a drawer he did not want to open. The freight invoices told the second half. Same product, same manufacturer code, same everything a customer would ever see, but the units that came through the two depots cost 40% more to land, not shipped farther. Not shipped faster, just more. The invoice line said storage, handling, repalletizing, words that meant nothing and billed like gold. Simone laid the two columns side by side, the way she had laid them 3 years ago on a warehouse spreadsheet at 2 in the morning, and this time she understood every number in front of her. Someone was buying cheaper furniture, weaker frames, thinner joints, the kind that cracked in 18 months, then running it through two depots that added a fake cost on the way. The store paid the high price. The books showed a premium product. The customer got the cheap one. And somewhere between the depot and the ledger, the difference walked away in someone's pocket. She pulled one cracked unit's file to be sure. A dining table, sold 14 months ago, returned 9 weeks back with a leg joint split clean through. The customer had photographed it on their kitchen floor, and the photo was clipped to the return. She looked at the break. She had sold 10 years of the same table under a different roof, and none of them had ever done that, because the ones she sold had a dowel through the joint, and this one had glue and a prayer. The label on the underside said the same model number as hers. The wood inside said something else. 12 stores, all fed from the same two depots, all cracking on the same schedule. She sat back. The chair squealed. She thought about the customers, the ones who had signed for a 10-year frame warranty and gotten a joint that lasted a year and a half, and about the class action that had a face and a lawyer and no idea it was standing on top of two depot codes. They thought they'd bought a bad table. They'd bought a swapped one. For a second, she let herself feel the whole shape of it, and it was uglier than she had guessed, because it meant the collapse was not an accident, and the class action was not bad luck. Somebody had built the failure on purpose and sold it as flooring. She gathered the invoices, photographed each one with her own phone, then handed the paper back exactly as she had received it. The gerente watched her copy everything and said nothing, because Min-jae had told him not to ask. Outside, the light had gone flat and gray. The black car sat at the edge of the lot with its engine off. She walked to it. The window came down. Min-jae did not open the door. He had learned that much. "Well," he said. "2 depots," she said. "Everything that broke came through them. Everything that held didn't." He held very still. "Names. Not yet. I have codes, not owners." She slid the notebook back into her coat and zipped it in front of him so he would see her do it. "That's my half of the deal. I find it. I hold it. Then find the owners." That's not how records work up here. She looked at the strip mall, the dead sign of the chain that never came. The depots file under a holding company. The holding company files under another one. I can pull threads all week and get more thread. She leaned a hand on the roof of the car. "There's a faster way. You own this company. Somewhere in Seoul there's a list of who your family pays. Get me the vendor payment records for the 2 depot codes. That takes a request. So request it." His jaw worked. He was not a man who filed requests. He was a man who arrived. "It will be seen," he said. "The moment I ask, someone on the other side knows I'm asking. Then we'll learn something from who flinches." She stepped back from the car. "You wanted me to find why 12 stores broke without the design changing. The design didn't change. The supply did. Somebody swapped the furniture and kept the label." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he said something in Korean, low, to the driver, and the driver started the car. The vendor records did not come in 2 days. They came in 5, and when they came wrong. Evelyn called her at the Segunda Casa on a Thursday, voice tight. You need to see this before he does. Simone drove in from the warehouse with grease still on her knuckles. Caleb had the loading door up and a customer's dresser half-wrapped. He lifted his chin at her, and she lifted hers back and kept walking to the office. Evelyn had the front desk covered in printouts and a laptop open to a page of numbers that did not match the numbers next to them. The payment records he pulled, Evelyn said, for the 2 depots. And? They're clean. Evelyn tapped the screen. Standard vendor. Standard rate. No 40%. On paper, the depots charge the same as everybody else. Simone leaned over the desk. That's not what the store invoices say. I know. The store paid 40 over. I have the freight bills. I know. Evelyn pulled a second stack forward. So either the store is lying or the Soul books are lying, and both of them are official. She looked up. Somebody's running 2 sets, the real one and the one they'd show an auditor. Simone stood there with her jacket still zipped and let the cold of it settle. 2 sets of books meant this had a hand behind it that knew how to hide, not a sloppy manager skimming. Somebody with authority over both ends. Whose signature releases the depot payments, she asked. Evelyn scrolled, stopped, turned the laptop slowly. The approval line on the Soul side depot ledger carried a name Simone had not seen in 3 years. Not Minjae, not Junsok. Park Dae-sung. Simone did not sit down. She put one finger on the screen, over the name, as if she could press it into paper. Park had left the American flagship a year after she did. She had heard that much through Evelyn, through the trade. She had assumed he'd been folded back into Soul, a middleman in a gray suit filing into meetings. Not this. Not signing the exact seam of the fraud. He approved the depot vendor, Evelyn said quietly, for years, from inside the company. And the store paid the inflated bill on the other end. Simone straightened. The middle ate the difference. Park signed the middle. Neither of them said the next part, which was that 3 years ago Park had put a letter on his desk recommending her, and under that letter a second document she never saw, and now here he was again with his name on the one page that mattered. The office door opened. Caleb leaned in, wiping his hands. There's a car out front, he said, not his. Simone looked up. What kind of car? City kind. Caleb frowned. 2 guys. One's got a clipboard. They're taking pictures of the building. The inspector was a heavy-set man with a lanyard and a tablet, and he was already photographing the loading dock when Simone came out. His partner stood by the fire door writing on a form. Segunda Casa? The inspector said, not looking up. You the owner? I am. We've got a complaint. Fire code, occupancy, storage of flammable finishes. He turned the tablet so she could see a filed form she had never filled out. Somebody reported you're running commercial furniture refinishing without a permit. Solvents over limit. I don't refinish, Simone said. I sell. There's cans back there. He nodded at the open door, where Caleb's staining station sat under a work light. 3 quarts of finish, the amount a hobbyist keeps. Those are his. She kept her voice level. For touch-ups. That's not a facility. We'll be the judge. He tapped the tablet. Complaint specific. Says you took delivery of unpermitted commercial inventory this week. Says the stock's a hazard. He glanced at the wrapped dresser, at the stacked units. We can red tag the space today pending review. That means you close while we process. Could be a week, could be a month. Caleb had gone still by the door. A month closed was the end of the Segunda Casa, and everyone in the lot knew it, including the inspector, who was not cruel, just doing what a filed complaint told him to do. Who filed it? Simone asked. Can't tell you that. This week, she said. You said the complaint mentions inventory I took in this week. She hadn't taken in unusual inventory this week. She had driven 90 minutes north and photographed 12 stores worth of freight invoices this week. Somebody's watching my delivery door. The inspector shrugged, which meant she was right, and it didn't matter. She thought fast. The permit fight she could win eventually and lose right now. Right now was what would sink her. A padlock and a review clock, while 40 days of a 45-day contract bled out. She had 2 conditions in that contract she could still use. She had a man in a black car who could not come near this warehouse. And she had the fact that she had guessed exactly right about the watching door. She stepped away from the inspector and made a call. Not to Min Jae, to Evelyn's cousin, the one who passed the bar. She kept it short, and let the inspector hear her say the word retaliation, and the word malicious complaint, and the word documented. And then she came back and said, "You can look at everything, open every can. But you're not tagging anything until you've logged who filed this and when, because I'm going to be filing back." The inspector looked at her a beat longer than before. Then he told his partner to note the time and started actually inspecting instead of pre-writing the tag. While they worked, she stood in the middle of her own warehouse and made herself look calm, because Caleb was watching her, and Caleb took his weather from her face. She kept her hands still. She answered every question in 4 words. When the inspector's partner asked to see her business license, she had it laminated and ready before he finished the sentence. And she watched him notice that a woman who kept a laminated license in a labeled folder was probably not running a secret solvent operation out of the back. The inspector opened each of the 3 cans himself. He dipped a strip, read it, capped it. He measured the distance from the cans to the fire door. He photographed the fire extinguisher and its tag. Twice he glanced back at the complaint on his tablet, and twice his mouth pulled, because the complaint described a factory and the room described a store. They found 3 quarts of finish, a warehouse of legal inventory, and no facility. It took 2 hours. At the end, the inspector wrote no violation on the storage and a warning on the finish cans and left without a red tag. At the door he paused. "For what it's worth," he said, "that complaint came in typed. Full legal name of a filing company on it. People mad at a neighbor don't usually file under a corporate name." He handed her a card. "You want to contest it? That's the reference number. It's public who filed." He left. Caleb let out a breath and put both hands on his head. "A month," he said. "They were going to close us over 3 cans. They were going to close us so I'd stop driving north," Simone said. She turned the reference card in her fingers. "Somebody typed my name into a form the same week I read those invoices. That's not a neighbor. That's a message." She did not call Min Jae that night. She let it sit. She wanted to see the shape of the whole thing before she handed him any of it, because Condition 2 said she decided what to show, and she was not done deciding. But Min Jae called her. "There was an inspector at your warehouse." Flat. Not a question. He had eyes she hadn't accounted for. "You said your men stay away from the warehouse." "They do. That's how I know it's not mine." A pause. "What did they want?" "To close me for a month, over a filed complaint. Corporate filer, on the record." She stood in the dark of the empty office with the reference card in her hand. "The same week I found the 2 depots. You want to tell me that's coincidence? I'll listen." Silence on the line. "Then, give me the filing number." "Why?" "Because I can find out who owns a filing company faster than you can, and I think we both already know it won't be a stranger." His voice had dropped into something colder, more careful. "Give it to me. This one I earn." "You hold the depot proof. Let me hold this." She weighed it. The card was public record. He'd get it in a day anyway. Handing it over cost her nothing and might buy her the one thing she still needed. The owner's name behind the depots. The name the soul books hid. She read him the number. "Simone." He said her name like it had weight. "The permit complaint. If it traces where I think it traces, you understand what it means. It means somebody wants me blind and closed at the same time. It means somebody knew you'd be at that store before you got there. A beat. There are 4 people who knew you were driving north this week. You, your bookkeeper, me, and whoever I asked in Seoul to pull the depot records." He let that land. "I asked for those records 5 days ago. Your inspector showed up 5 days later." Simone's hand tightened on the card. "You think the request tipped somebody?" "I think the moment I asked who owns the 2 depots, someone in Seoul moved to shut your door before you could connect it." A pause. "I'll have the filer by morning." He had it by morning. He came to the Segunda Casa lot at 8, but he stayed in the car and had the driver walk a folder to the office door and hand it to Evelyn, because the warehouse was hers and he kept the line. Simone read it standing at the desk with Caleb watching from the doorway. The permit complaint had been filed by a company called Hanmore Logistics Solutions. 2 pages in, Hanmore Logistics owned a stake in a holding company. 3 pages in, the holding company shared a director with a firm that had, 11 months ago, bid to acquire distressed retail real estate. Leases, buildings, exactly the kind of assets 12 failing stores would shed in a fire sale. And the director's name, printed on the incorporation page, in English and in Korean, was Han Jun-suk. Simone set the folder down flat. She read the incorporation page again, slower, the way she read a contract before she signed it. The English spelling, the Korean beside it, the date of filing, which was older than the collapse, older than the class action, old enough that whoever set this up had been patient about it. Evelyn had come to the doorway behind her. "That's the cousin," Evelyn said. "The one from the family tree Min-jae mentioned." "That's the cousin." Min-jae's cousin. The one the character of the family tree had put beside him. One branch over, without the tiger, without the top job, with a minimalist watch and a family pin and a smile that never reached anything. She had never met him. She had heard the name once, from Min-jae, in a sentence about the family being rearranged in Seoul. Jun-suk had filed the complaint that would have closed her door, which meant Jun-suk knew she was looking, which meant the request Min-jae sent to Seoul had crossed Jun-suk's desk, or someone loyal to it, which meant the man who inflated the depots and the man who wanted the stores to fail were not necessarily the same man. Park signed the depot payments. Jun-suk reached for the wreckage, 2 hands. She didn't know yet if they were on the same body. She walked out to the car with the folder. The window came down. Min-jae was looking straight ahead through the windshield, both hands loose in his lap, and she understood he had already read it and had wanted her to read it in front of him. "You knew it was him before you handed me the number," she said. "I suspected." He turned his head. "Jun-suk wanted operations 3 years ago. Seoul gave it to me. He never argued. He just started losing bids and buildings and waiting. His mouth was a line. If the American stores die, they sell cheap. If they sell cheap, a company he's tied to buys the leases. If he owns the ground the family's business stands on, he owns the family's next vote." And Park? Something crossed his face. Park signed the depots. Park does not bid on buildings. Park is not a man who wants to own things. He's a man who wants to be paid to look away. He was quiet a second. One of them built the fraud, the other one's harvesting what it kills. I don't know yet if they planned it together or just found each other useful. Simone held the folder against her chest. "Your cousin tried to padlock my warehouse, to keep me from finding the depots your family pays for. Do you understand what that tells me?" "Tell me." "It tells me the 2 depots are the whole thing, not a detail, the center." She leaned down to the window. Nobody burns a favor with a city inspector over a detail. He panicked. The routes and the lots are what he can't let anyone prove. Min-jae looked at the folder, then at her hands around it. "Then prove it. All the way. Names, money, dates. Not enough to make me believe. Enough that a room full of my family can't pretend not to." 40 days left, she said. 38. She straightened. Across the lot, Caleb had gone back to wrapping the dresser like it was any other morning, because that was the deal. The family worked, she fought, and the 2 didn't touch. Behind her, the loading door stood open on a warehouse that had almost closed the day before over 3 cans of finish and a lie with a corporate name on it. "I need the depot vendor's real bank records," she said. "Not the clean Seoul set. The account the 40% actually landed in. If I match the deposits to Park's approvals and the withdrawals to anything Jun-suk touches, that's not a theory anymore. Those records don't file where I can request them without warning him again. Then we do it without a request." She looked at him. "One of your 12 stores paid those invoices from its own account. The payment went somewhere. A store's outgoing wire has a receiving account on it. I don't need Seoul. I need one store's bank to show me where its money went. The store won't hand a consultant its banking. It handed me its freight invoices when you told it to." She let that sit. "You already broke that door open. I just want to walk through it one more room. The wire confirmations. Nobody in Seoul has to know a store looked at its own account." She tapped the roof of the car once. "That's the difference. A request goes up the chain and hits whoever's watching the chain. A store reading its own bank statement goes nowhere. It's already theirs." He was quiet. Then, slowly, "The store up north, the one you already have. Its wires will name the account that ate the difference. She stepped back from the car. Get me 90 minutes with its banking, and I'll give you a name on the other end of the money. Min-jae studied her the way a man studies a door he's not sure opens in or out. Jun-suk knows you're close now, he said. He filed to stop you, and it didn't stop you. The next thing he tries won't be a permit. Then we go before he tries it. He nodded once. He said something to the driver. The engine turned over. But before the window rose, he looked back at her, and for the first time since the sidewalk 3 years ago, there was something in his face that wasn't strategy. Whatever the account says, he said, even if it names someone I'd rather it didn't. Condition 4 holds. It holds because it's in writing, she said, not because you feel like it today. The window went up. The car pulled out of the lot and turned north, and Simone stood in the open door of her warehouse with a folder full of her almost closing pressed to her chest, and a name, 2 names, burning behind her eyes. She went inside. She took the notebook out of the zipped pocket. Under the line that said who owns the 2 depots, in the same block letters, she wrote 2 more. Park signs. Jun-suk collects. Then she wrote a 3rd line and underlined it twice, because it was the one she didn't have yet and the one that would decide everything. Where did the 40% land? Caleb looked over from the dresser. We okay? We're not closed, she said. That's not what I asked, and you know it. She zipped the notebook back into her coat. Out on the road, the black car was already small, then gone. 38 days on the clock, 2 men she'd never once sat across from, 1 account, somewhere, with the truth sitting in it like a stone at the bottom of a well. Wrap the dresser, she said. I'm driving north again tomorrow. Simone got to the North store before the manager did. She waited in the lot with the engine off and the notebook flat on her thigh, watching the strip fill with cars that belonged to a nail salon and a phone repair place, and nothing that sold furniture. The store opened at 10. She walked in at 10:02 and asked for the outbound wire records by name. The manager gave them up slower this time. He'd been told, somewhere up the line, that she was trouble. He printed the batch anyway, because a man in a black car had put access to her hands and hadn't unput it. She took the pages to the back office and spread them beside the freight invoices she already had. 2 columns again. 1 column named the vendor of the 2 depots. The other named a receiving account. She ran her finger down until the numbers stopped hiding. The 40% had a home. It landed in an account under a name that meant nothing on its face. A holding, 3 words, incorporated in a state nobody lived in, but the routing carried a subledger, and the subledger carried an approval initial, and the initial was the same one she'd seen on the sole payment line. Park signed the money in. Somebody else pulled it out. She photographed each page. She wrote 1 line in the notebook, under the 2 that were already there. Then she drove home with the radio off. Evelyn was waiting at the Segunda Casa, with the front lights on, and a face that meant she'd found something before Simone walked in the door. That was the arrangement now. Evelyn found the paper. Simone found the meaning. You need to sit, Evelyn said. I don't. Sit anyway. There was a folder on the workbench that hadn't been there that morning. Not a Han folder, not a store folder, an old one, soft at the corners, the kind of interoffice envelope with the string wound around the button. Evelyn had her hand flat on top of it, like it might get up and leave. Where'd this come from? Simone said. The class action discovery dump. Their lawyers had to hand over everything the American flagship archived before it closed. Boxes of it. My cousin got a copy because we filed as an affected retailer. Evelyn pushed the envelope an inch. I was reading it for depot names. I wasn't looking for this. Simone unwound the string. Inside was a version of Casa Real, not hers, or not the one she'd handed across a counter 3 years ago to a boy who never looked up. This one was printed on Han letterhead, submitted to Seoul as a proposal for the small format division. Same floor plans, same cantilever counter braced on the shelf column, the one Caleb had sketched on a school night. Same phasing, same costed manufacturing plan she'd built at 2 in the morning. Different name in the author field. The author field said the division, not a person, a department. Her name was nowhere on the submitted copy. It had been lifted clean off. Simone turned the pages slower than she needed to. Her thumb found the tab. On the archived original, the one under the submitted copy, the one somebody had filed but never scrubbed, the tab still carried block letters in a hand she'd know in the dark, Casa Real, S. Brooks. And across the front page, over her own printed lines, a diagonal note in a different pen. Reassign author div.credit only. The initial after it was Parks. She had known. Some part of her had known for 3 years, the way you know a tooth is dying before it goes black. But knowing and holding the page were different weights. That's you, Evelyn said. That's proof it's you. The metadata's in the file too. Cousin pulled the properties. Created on a machine that logged in under your associate ID. 2 in the morning. The date you told your mother something was happening at work. Evelyn's voice cracked on the small parts. Park changed the author line himself and buried the original in an archive nobody was supposed to keep. But they kept it. It's yours, Simone. On paper. Forever. It should have felt like winning. She waited for it to. She stood in her own store with the one thing she'd wanted for 3 years flat under her hands. Her name, her hour, her machine ID, her block letters on the tab, and waited for the warmth to come up through her chest the way it was supposed to. It didn't come. Something in her had learned not to trust the good page until she'd read the one behind it. She'd learned that lesson the first time in a glass office over a mezzanine. She wasn't going to unlearn it in a warehouse. Say something, Evelyn said. You're scaring me. You get quiet like that right before nothing. Simone kept her eyes on the paper. I'm reading. You've read it 4 times. There's more behind it. There's always more behind it. She looked up once, just long enough for Evelyn to see her face and stop pushing. Somebody who steals a woman's name off her own work doesn't file it clean and walk away. He staples it to something. He builds it into a chain so the theft has cover. I want to see the chain. Simone kept turning pages, because the pages weren't done. Behind the submitted proposal there was a routing sheet. Who saw it, who signed off. The whole chain from the American floor up to a sole committee. She read the names the way she read manifests now, top to bottom, no skipping. And near the bottom, on the sign-off that approved sending her stolen work up the chain, was a second signature she hadn't gone looking for. Han Min Jae. Dated 11 days before the party. 11 days before the balloons and the banner and the applause and the box she carried across a floor. 11 days before he stepped off a plane not knowing her name, except the routing sheet said he'd signed the page that carried her name, and someone had struck the name, and he'd signed under the strike. Simone set the folder down very flat. What? Evelyn said. What is it? He signed it. Her own voice came out level, which frightened her more than shaking would have. Before he ever landed, he signed the page that reassigned it. That doesn't. He was new. He signed 100 pages. He wouldn't have known. He said it to my face on the sidewalk. Simone turned the folder so Evelyn could see the strike, the initials, the date. You named it. Casa Real. 3 years ago. He knew the name. He knew there was a name to know. He's known the whole time whose it was. The store was quiet in the way a store is quiet when 2 people have stopped breathing normally. Simone drove to the meeting spot herself. She didn't call ahead. The black car was already at the north lot when she got there the next morning. He'd come up expecting the wire records, the good news, the account with the 40% finally named. She got out with the folder instead of the notebook. Min Jae read her walk before she reached the car. He stepped out. Long coat, no gloves, the cold not touching him the way it never seemed to. His men stayed by the doors, far, the way the contract made them stay. You found the account, he said. I found the account. She held it up, the wire pages, and then let that hand drop. She lifted the other, and I found this. He looked at the soft envelope. Something moved behind his eyes and then stopped moving, which was its own answer. You know what it is, she said. Tell me what you think it is. Don't, the word came out flat and final. Don't do the thing where you make me say it so you can watch my face. You've been watching my face for 40 days. You watched it across a floor before that. She opened the folder to the routing sheet and turned it toward him. Her thumb sat under his own initials. Read your own name to me. Tell me you can't read it. He didn't take the page. He looked at it where she held it. The wind moved the edge of the paper, and he didn't reach to steady it. I signed it, he said. 11 days before you landed. 11 days before I landed. You knew there was a name. I knew there was a name. She waited for the qualifier. The men who worked for men like him always had one more clause. But. However. You have to understand. He gave her none, and the absence was worse, because it meant he wasn't going to insult her by dressing it. Say the rest, she said. His jaw worked once. The tiger's edge showed above the coat collar when he turned his head, and then didn't hide when he turned back. I signed a stack in Seoul before I was sent over. Reorganization paper. 100 names I didn't know, on 100 pages I skimmed. Yours was struck. I signed under the strike without reading whose it was. He stopped. That's the part I could defend. Then defend it and go home. I'm not finished. He said it quietly. I read the file after. 3 weeks after I got here, I found the original with your name on the tab in an archive I had no business opening, and I read what Park wrote in the margin, and I knew by then exactly who you were, the woman who'd walked out of my party carrying a box. His breath fogged and thinned, and I said nothing. For 3 years I said nothing. I let you name it on a sidewalk, and I let you think I didn't understand what I was thanking you for. There it was. Not the signing. Anyone signs a stack. The silence after. The 3 years of choosing it, day on day, while she paid her mother's pills first, and let the envelopes go unopened, and taught herself to say, "This isn't my store." Why? She said. Because I needed you clean. He didn't flinch off it. If I'd told you 3 years ago, you'd never have taken the contract. And I needed someone the family couldn't buy, to prove what Park and Junsuk did. I told myself I'd give you the credit at the end. When it was safe. When it was useful. When it was useful to you. Yes. The one honest word in the whole grammar of him. She almost respected it. She hated that she almost respected it. So I was the tool twice, she said. Park stole the work. You used the theft. Yes. Simone closed the folder. She held it against her chest with both arms, the way she'd held the box across the floor, and she understood the shape of the morning now, the whole architecture of it, how the best thing that had ever landed in her lap, proof, in metadata, in her own hand, that Casa Real was hers forever, had arrived stapled to the worst thing, that the man she'd spent 40 days almost trusting had known, and eaten his knowing in silence while she drowned. The contract's over, she said. He went still. There are 5 days left. Not the clock. The contract. She stepped back from the car. Condition 4. Everything I find that's true comes out. You signed that. You fought it, and you lost it, and you signed it. She lifted the wire pages in the other hand. I found where the 40% lands. I found who owns the work. I found your name on the strike. All of it's true. All of it comes out, and I'm not doing the rest of it standing next to you, because you're in the picture now. You've been in the picture the whole time. Simone, you don't get my first name. She said it without heat, which was how she knew she meant it. You had 3 years to earn it. You spent them watching. She turned for her truck. If you break it now, he said to her back, Park will move first. You understand that. The second you're not under my contract, there's nothing between you and him but paper. He'll bury you in it. Then he'll bury me in the truth, she said, and got in, and drove south. He didn't follow. That was the last thing she clocked in the mirror, the black car sitting where she'd left it, him standing beside the open door, the coat not moving, a man who could have sent 2 others after her truck and chose the thing the paper told him. She hated that she noticed. She hated more that she filed it, the way she filed everything now, in a column that might matter later. A man who obeyed a broken contract for the length of one parking lot was a man who still wanted something from her. She just didn't know yet whether wanting was worse than not. Her hands were steady on the wheel for the first 10 minutes. Then they weren't, and she pulled onto the shoulder and let them shake with no one watching, the way she only ever let them, and when they stopped, she pulled back on and kept going. Park moved before she reached the city line. She didn't know it yet. She found out the way she found out most things now. Evelyn, phone, the store lights on at the wrong hour. When Simone came through the door, Evelyn had the laptop turned around already, and Caleb was standing behind it with his apron still on, and his face doing something she hadn't seen since he was small. It's everywhere, Evelyn said. What is? You are. Park hadn't waited to be exposed. He'd exposed first, and he'd chosen the frame. A trade industry site, the kind furniture buyers read, had run a document package that morning under a headline about the Han Living collapse and the consultant behind the defective inventory. The consultant was Simone. The documents were hers, some of them. Enough of them, cut the right way. There was a version of the freight invoices with her fingerprints on the access log and none of Park's approval line. There was a manifest showing she'd handled the swapped stock, framed as though handling meant choosing. There was a copy of the Segunda Casa inspection warning, the finish cans, the solvent note, printed to read like a woman running an unlicensed refinishing operation who knew about defective joints and sold them anyway. There was a photo of her walking into the North store past a manager's shoulder, captioned to look like access she shouldn't have had. And there was Casa Real, her Casa Real, reproduced as evidence that she'd taken credit for a division concept that legally belonged to Han, the author line reading. Division. The strike invisible in the version they printed, so that her claim on it looked like theft, instead of the theft looking like theft. They flipped it, Caleb said. He said it 3 times, quiet, like the number would change. They flipped the whole thing. They made you you're the one who… I see it, Simone said. You didn't do any of this. I see it, Caleb. She sat down. Not because she was told to this time, because her legs had made the decision without her. Evelyn scrolled. It was already moving. The trade site fed the furniture forums, fed a design blog, fed the kind of account that reposts a downfall before checking whether it's real. By noon, there'd be a name attached to the collapse that wasn't Han, and wasn't Park, and wasn't Jun Suk. It would be the black woman with the failing store and the notebook full of numbers, who'd been let go 3 years ago. Let go. The piece said, not. Walked out. And come back angry. Call the cousin, Simone said. Tell him it's defamation and I want it documented. Times and dates, same as the inspection. Screenshots before they edit. Evelyn was already typing. Done. Doing. And pull the metadata file, the real author properties. That doesn't change no matter what they print. It doesn't, Evelyn said. It can't. It's yours. Then the phone in Simone's own pocket buzzed, and it wasn't a person. It was the bank. She read it standing up. 2 lines, automated, the language of a wall. The payment from the Han consultancy contract, the money that had come in against her 40 days, the money that was the only thing between the Segunda Casa and a padlock in the fall, had been placed under review, frozen, pending resolution of a reported dispute regarding the source funds. Reported, by whom? The message didn't say. It didn't have to. The trade piece had named her as the party responsible for the defective inventory, and a defective inventory claim against the source of a payment was all it took to make a bank close its hand. Park hadn't just poisoned her name. He'd reached through the name into the account and turned it off. Simone. Evelyn had stopped typing. She'd been watching her face. What? He froze the contract money. She set the phone down beside the laptop, screen up, so the 2 of them could read the wall together. There's a dispute on the source funds. There isn't one. He made one. The bank doesn't care if it's real. It just holds. Caleb did the math out loud because he was 21 and couldn't not. The rent's due in 9 days, and Mom's refills the 14th. He looked at the frozen line. That was the money for both. He said the number for the medication out loud too, the monthly one, the one Simone paid first and never discussed. And hearing it in her brother's mouth in the middle of a store that might not exist in 9 days, did something to her that the headline hadn't. The headline was a stranger's lie. The number was true. The number had been true for 3 years, quietly, every month, carried without a word to their mother, so Lorraine could keep believing the store was fine, and her daughter was fine, and the world had simply moved on and let them be. Now a man in Seoul had reached across an ocean and put his thumb on the one account that kept the number paid, and he'd done it with a lie printed under her own face. She can't know, Simone said. Mom, not yet, not from a website. I know what it was for. So the store money, the register, the register covers the pills. Simone said it fast, so it would be settled before anyone could argue. The pills come first. They've always come first. We miss the rent. You'll lose the building. Then I'll lose the building. She heard her own voice from a long way off, flat and clear. The voice she used on a sales floor when the number was the number. Nobody's mother goes without the medicine. Write it down, Caleb. Pills 14th. Everything else waits. He didn't write it down. He came around the workbench and stood next to her the way he used to stand next to her when they were kids and the lights got cut. Close, not touching, present. She let him. The store had gone very still. Outside, a car went by that wasn't black, and then another that was, slow, and then gone. She thought about the men who kept their distance because a contract said to, and the contract was over now, and she wondered how long the distance would hold once the paper stopped holding it. She should have felt the bottom. She was at it. Name flipped, money frozen, building gone in 9 days. The one man she'd let close revealed as the earliest link in the chain that sold her. Everything she'd carried across that floor 3 years ago. The dignity, "This isn't my store," had come back multiplied and turned into a headline with her face on it. Simone reached past the laptop and picked up the old envelope, the soft one, the archived Casa Real with her name on the tab. She opened it to the metadata printout Evelyn's cousin had pulled. Created 2:14 a.m. Associate ID logged. The date. Her hand on the tab in block letters. She looked at it a long time. They printed the version without the strike, she said. So the world sees me stealing a division from Han. Right, Evelyn said carefully. And the version with the strike proves Park lifted my name off my own work. Right. And the bank froze me because a trade site said I broke the inventory. Right. So the whole thing they built stands on one bet. Simone set the printout down and flattened it with her palm, slow, the way she used to flatten a floor plan before a client who didn't know yet that they were going to buy. That I only have the pieces they can flip. That I don't have the pieces that don't flip. She looked up. Park signs. Junsock collects. I have the account now. I have the routing. I have the strike in Park's own pen, and the metadata in a machine that logged my ID. None of that flips. You can't caption a routing number into something it isn't. Simone, they froze the money. They've got the whole trade press. You've got 9 days and no, I've got the one thing they spent 3 years making sure I'd never have. She stood. Her legs were under her again. Everyone in one place, reading the same headline, waiting to see what the woman does next. She picked up the notebook from the bench, the one with the 3 lines under. Who owns the 2 depots? And turned to a clean page. They put my face on it to bury me. They just put my face on it. Caleb watched her uncap the pen. What are you doing? Making a list, she wrote in block letters, the same trace he'd inherited, pressing hard enough to score the page. Of every person who has to be in the room when the true version comes out. Not the trade site, not a forum, a room, Park in it, Junsock in it, the family that votes in 5 days in it. She underlined the top line twice. If it comes out where they can spin it, they win. It comes out where they can't. You broke the contract, Evelyn said. Min-jae's not going to hand you the room now. Simone's pen stopped. She thought about the sidewalk, 3 years and 40 days of it. About a man who'd signed under a strike and then read the file and then said nothing, and who had, in the same breath this morning, been the only one who ever told her the plain true word without a clause behind it. Yes, yes, yes? No, she said. He's not going to hand me the room. She looked at the frozen phone, the flipped headline, the 9 days. I'm going to make him need me in it. She wrote the last name on the list herself, in the same block letters, and underlined it once, and did not say it out loud. Caleb leaned to read it and she closed the notebook before he could. Outside, the slow black car came back down the strip a 3rd time and stopped across the street with its engine running, and did not come closer, and did not leave. Simone walked out to the black car before it could decide for her. She left the notebook on the workbench, took only her phone, and crossed the strip with her hands loose at her sides. The rear window came down halfway. The face behind it was not the one she expected. Not Min-jae. A narrow face, silver at the temples, thin glasses catching the streetlight. Ms. Brooks, Han Junsock said, you've been hard to reach. She stopped a step short of the door. You filed a complaint on my building. A subsidiary did. I read about it after. He smiled the way a man smiles when he wants you to know the lie is polite. May I offer you a ride? 10 minutes. Nobody follows. Say it from there. He liked that. He folded his hands. You have documents. I have a problem that pays. My cousin is finished either way. The family votes in 5 days, and the stores go to whoever holds the paper. That will be me. He let it sit. You can be on the winning side for once. What do you want? A statement. Signed. That Han Min-jae directed the inventory substitution. That he ordered the depots. Your name is already in the news attached to it. You simply move it one seat over. He reached into the door pocket and set a folder on the sill, not handing it, letting her see the weight of it. We clear your name. We restore your payment, the medication, the rent, the boys' tuition, all of it, this week. She looked at the folder and did not touch it. He signed the reassignment, Jun-suk said softly. 11 days before he landed. You found that yourself, didn't you? He took your name off Casa Real and stayed quiet for 3 years. He tilted his head. I'm only asking you to tell the truth about a man who already lied to you. That was the part that landed. That was the part built to land. You did your homework, she said. I did. Then you know I keep my own copies. She stepped back from the door. And you know what a routing number does. It doesn't change when you change the caption. His smile thinned. Think about the boys' tuition. I have been thinking about it for 3 years. She turned. You'll have my answer Thursday, in the room. There is no room. There will be. She walked back across the strip. Behind her, the window rose, and the car pulled off slow, and this time it left. She did not call Min-jae. She called Evelyn, and then she called the cousin who passed the bar, and she stayed up until the finished tanks in Caleb's station through long shadows, building the only thing Jun-suk had told her she couldn't have. The room. It took her 30 hours. She did not ask Min-jae for it. She made him need it. She sent one thing to one address, the Seoul Family Council, the office that scheduled the vote. A single page, printed, couriered, no email that could be pulled or spun. On it, in block letters, 2 lines. The first named the receiving account for the 40%. The second named the approval initial that signed the money in. Under both, she wrote one sentence. Ask Han Jun-suk whose account this is before you vote to sell him the buildings. She signed it in block letters, S. Brooks. Then she waited. Min-jae called at 6 the next morning. She let it ring twice. They moved the vote up, he said. Tomorrow, Seoul. Video into the flagship conference floor. Everyone in one place. A pause. You did this. I sent 1 page. They want you there. My uncle asked for you by name. Another pause, longer. Park will be on the screen. Jun-suk is flying in. He thinks he's coming to close. Then he's coming to the room, Simone said, and hung up. The flagship still had plywood over the front windows. Someone had pulled the plywood off the doors for the day and left the party banner from 3 years gone folded in a bin by the loading dock, cream and gold, and Simone saw it there when she came in the back, the way the associates used to come in, and she left it in the bin. The conference floor was the old mezzanine, glassed off now. A long table, a wall screen split into panels, Seoul faces, the family council, an empty square waiting. Park's panel lit last, gray suit, silver tie, glasses catching the camera light, the way they always caught everything. He looked at Simone across 9,000 miles and a screen and did not blink. Min-jae stood at the far end in the black overcoat, apart from the table, apart from the family, exactly where a man stands when he isn't sure he's allowed to sit. He caught her eye once. She gave him the stranger's face she had given him 3 years ago on that floor. She was not here for him. Jun-suk took the chair nearest the screen like it was already his. The uncle, old, dry-voiced, the vote's center of gravity, opened his hand toward Simone. You sent a page. I brought the rest of it. She set the folder on the table, not the notebook, the folder. You're voting to sell 12 stores to a man who broke them on purpose. Before you do, I'd like you to see how. Jun-suk laughed once, light. She's a fired consultant named in the press for the defects. This is theater. It is, Simone said. Yours, you wrote it. I'm just moving the props back where they go. She did not raise her voice. She laid pages down one at a time, and she made them read. First, the freight invoices. Same manufacturer code, same product, 40% higher landing cost through 2 depots, false lines for storage and handling and repalletizing. Then the manifests, sorted so a child could see it. Every cracked frame came through one of 2 depot codes. Every intact unit came through neither. Then the returned dining table. The joint glued instead of doweled. The label swearing it was the premium model. The 10-year warranty sold on a lie. Furniture bought cheap, she said. Sold at the real price. The difference went somewhere. She laid down the wire records. The receiving account, the 3-word holding, the state with no people in it. The subledger, the approval initial on the money going in. Park signs it in. She set the last page beside it. Somebody pulls it out. The uncle looked at Park's panel. Park's mouth stayed a flat line. Down the table, one of the younger cousins leaned in to read the wire page upside down and then leaned back fast, like the paper was hot. The family counsel's pen started moving on his own pad and did not stop. Simone let the silence work. She had learned, 6 years on a sales floor, that the moment after a number lands is worth more than any word you can put on top of it. She put nothing on top of it. That's an initial, Jun-suk said. An initial is not a name. You're right. Simone turned a page toward him. So here's the name. The complaint that tried to close my building last month was filed by Hanmore Logistics Solutions. Hanmore rolls up into a holding. The holding shares a director with the firm that bid on distressed Han retail property 11 months ago. Leases, buildings, the ground under the stores. She stopped. The director is you. The floor went quiet enough to hear the screen hum. You wanted operations 3 years ago, she said. You lost to him. A nod down the table at Min-jae, not a warm one. So you didn't take the stores. You killed them. Cheap furniture, inflated books, the money skimmed to fund the buy. Park approves the depots because Park gets paid to look the other way. The stores fail, they sell cheap, your firm buys the ground. Own the ground, own the next family vote. She set her hand flat on the pages. You weren't going to inherit the company. You were going to foreclose on it. Jun-suk's jaw worked. And why, he said, would Park do this? For me, a cousin he's never worked under. He turned it toward Park's panel, buying a second, spreading the weight. This is her fantasy. No, Simone straightened. This was the piece she had carried longest, the one that had nothing to do with money. Park did it for himself. Ask him why he blocked my promotion. Park spoke for the first time, flat, cold, through the speaker. You were a salesperson. There was no promotion. There was a division. She reached into the folder and drew out the last thing. Not a wire record. A concept binder, worn at the tab. You recommended my work for a role. You wrote the letter, and under the letter there was a second document I was never meant to see. She set the archived Casa Real on the table. The submitted version, author field reassigned to the division, her name lifted clean off. Then she set the original beside it, the one that had never been scrubbed, tab still reading in block letters. The same block letters her brother had learned from her. Casa Real, S. Brooks. On its first page, diagonal in ink. Reassign author, div.credit only. An initial after it, his. You knew what I built, she said. Better than anyone. You knew if you made me a manager I'd be inside the numbers. Inside the depots. Inside your books. Her hand pressed flat on the tab with her name, the block letters her whole family wrote in. You told me my work was on the short list. You were careful to say the work, not me. I heard the difference and I told myself I hadn't. She let the 2 pages sit side by side under the light. You didn't pass me over because I wasn't good enough. You passed me over because I was too good to keep out of the ledger. A salesperson closes and goes home. A manager reads the freight invoices. She looked at his panel. You couldn't afford to be seen by me, so you made sure no one saw me at all. The uncle picked up the original binder. He read the margin. He read the tab. He turned it, so the family counsel's camera could take it. The metadata's logged under my associate ID, Simone said. 2:14 in the morning. The date's on record. It can't be edited. Every other page in this folder came from a court discovery dump, not from me. You can pull your own copies. She stepped back from the table. You don't have to trust me. That's the point. None of it needs me to be honest. The routing number doesn't care whose name is in the news. Junseok stood. This is... Sit down, the uncle said. Not loud. Junseok sat. Then Junseok tried the last door. He turned, not to Simone, to Min-jae, down the length of the table. You've been running this consultant for 6 weeks. You put her on the stores. Whatever she's found, you found first. You directed it. He spread his hands to the room. He's the one who signed the reassignment. 11 days before he landed. It's in her own folder. Ask her. He looked back at Simone, and now the offer was naked. You have the page with his name on it. 1 sentence. Say he ordered the depots and you walk out clean today. I'll fund it in this room. Every face turned to Simone. This was the seat he'd been building for her the whole time. All she had to do was move her own name 1 chair over, onto Min-jae, and the medication was paid, the rent was paid, the tuition was paid, the headline reversed by Friday. She looked down the table at Min-jae. He was looking at her the way a man looks when he already knows he has no vote in what happens next. He did not say his own name, he did not defend it. He let it sit on the table between them and left it to her. He signed a stack of reorganization paper in Seoul before he was sent, Simone said. Under threat. He didn't read whose name was under his pen. That part's true, and I won't lie the other way to make you comfortable. She turned back to Junseok. And then he read the file 3 weeks later, found my name on that tab, and stayed quiet for 3 years. Her voice did not rise. I broke my contract with him over it. I told him he had 3 years to earn something and he wasted them. That's between him and me, and it's real, and it's mine. Then say he. He didn't order the depots. You did. Park signed them. The account is yours. She closed the folder. I'm not going to hang a true thing on the wrong man to save myself. That's the whole reason you're all in this room. Because somebody already did that to me. And the paper didn't change just because the caption did. She looked at Park's panel, then at Junseok. I don't work like you. The room understood before the uncle said it. He set both hands on the table and pushed himself up. He was old and it took him a moment. The vote is cancelled, he said. There is nothing to sell. He looked at Park's panel. You're removed. Your access, your signatures, your title. Council will handle the accounts and the authorities. Park's panel sat still 1 second, 2, and then went dark. Not cut. Left. He had logged off. He had nothing left to sign. The uncle turned to Junseok. You'll surrender your interest in the holding and the bids. Quietly, today, or council does it loudly tomorrow with these pages attached. No men, no threat, no raised hand. Just an old man and a folder and a family that had finally seen the numbers. Junseok stood, buttoned his jacket over nothing, and walked out of the room he'd come to own. The door took a long time to close behind him. Then the uncle looked at Simone and at the binder in his hands and at the tab that still said her name. This was yours, he said. It is mine. It will say so. He set it down gently, the way you set down something you've broken and are trying to give back, whole. Publicly, the concept, the division, the name, the credit reassignment is void. The bonus that was paid to the division account will be paid to you, with the 3 years. He paused. And the man's name comes off the project. Han Min-jae's name comes off. Yours goes on. At the far end of the table, Min-jae had gone very still. He'd earned nothing here, and he knew it. And he took the removal of his name off her work, like a man taking a debt being called. With relief, not protest. There's the matter of the press, the uncle said. You were named. That will be corrected. It'll correct itself, Simone said. You put my face on everything. That means everyone's already looking at the same page. Turn the page over. Evelyn was in the corner with the cousin, and she was already moving. The metadata file, the real freight lines, the routing, the margin in Park's own pen, going out the same channels that had carried the lie, into the same trade site, the same forums, the same reposting accounts. By afternoon, the headline would flip. By the weekend, the consultant behind the defective inventory would have a different name attached, and it would not be Simone's, and it would not be a lie. The uncle offered her the thing she'd been told for 6 weeks she wanted. The division needs a director, he said. The American retail. 12 stores. It was built on your work. It should be run by you. He said it like a crown. Name your terms. The room waited for the yes. 3 years ago, she had stood on this floor with a box and imagined the salary, the benefits, the title, The thing that would finally make them see her. She had wanted the seat so badly she'd stayed until 2 in the morning naming it. No, Simone said. The uncle's brow moved. Not a title inside your company. I've watched what your company does to the people inside it. She kept her voice even. I have my own store, Segunda Casa. It survived you. It's going to keep surviving you. She set her hand on the folder one last time. Here's my term. Segunda Casa becomes your independent partner for the small format concept. My design, my name on it, licensed, not owned. I run my floor. You don't sign my freight. I audit the depots for all 12 stores, on my paper, with my access, and what I find comes out. Same as the contract you already broke your own man trying to bury. She looked once at Min Jae, then away. I don't come inside, you come to me. The uncle looked at her for a long moment. Then something in his dry face eased, almost a smile. You negotiate like someone who's already lost everything once. I have, she said. It makes the number easy. Done. She unfroze the only thing that mattered before she left the building. She stood on the plywood dark ground floor and called the bank, and the cousin read the dispute reference into the phone, and the uncle's counsel confirmed the source funds in writing while she waited, and the hold came off the payment. The medication was covered. The rent was covered. Caleb's tuition, the year he'd swallowed and called his own idea, was covered, twice over, with 3 years of a bonus she'd earned at 2:14 in the morning, on a bus with a folder on her knees. Then she called her mother. Not to explain 3 years, not from a website. She sat in her car in the flagship lot, the same lot, and she told Lorraine, plainly, that she'd left the old company a long time ago and built her own, and that today the people who'd taken her name gave it back, and that the medication was paid through the year, and that she was all right, better than all right. Lorraine was quiet on the line for a while. Simone could hear the sewing kit click open and shut, the way her mother's hands moved when her mind did. Then she asked only one thing. Was the boy all right? Was Caleb all right? And Simone said he was going back to school, and heard her mother breathe out 3 years of a weight neither of them had named on the phone before. Then Lorraine said the thing she'd said 3 years ago, the thing Simone had carried like a stone through every mile of it. I always told you to make sure somebody sees you. They see me, Simone said. And this time it was not a wish, and it was not a promise she was making to the dark on a sidewalk. It was a receipt. Min Jae found her in the lot before she pulled out. He came to the window, not the door. He'd learned that much. He stood outside the car the way she'd made his men stand outside her gate for 6 weeks. He didn't reach for the handle. You could have moved your name onto mine, he said. You'd have walked out clean this morning. He'd have paid. I know. Why didn't you? She looked at him through the glass. Because the whole thing that broke me was somebody hanging a true story on the wrong person to save themselves. I'm not going to become that to get out of it. She started the engine. You signed the paper 11 days before you landed. That's true. You read it and stayed quiet 3 years. That's true too. I'm not going to erase the first to punish you for the second, and I'm not going to erase the second because your uncle just took your name off my project. She put her hands on the wheel. You wanted me clean so I could do this. I did it. We're square on the work. That's all we are. He nodded slowly. He'd expected nothing more and had hoped, in the place men don't admit, for something more. And he let the hope go the way you let go of a name you weren't given. The division's yours to license now, he said. Not mine to run. They took it off me. He almost smiled. You made me need you in that room. Then you didn't need me at all. No, she said. I didn't. She pulled out of the flagship lot and did not look at the plywood in the mirror. They finished the correction over the next 2 days, and the trade site ran it, and the forums turned, and the design blog that had carried the lie carried the metadata, and the customers with the cracked frames learned it wasn't a bad table, it was a swapped one, and whose signatures had swapped it. Park's name went to the authorities with the depots. Jun-suk surrendered the bids in silence, the way small men lose when the loss is quiet and total. No one raised a hand. The paper did all of it. Segunda Casa didn't close in the fall. Caleb painted a second sign in the same block letters and hung it under the first. The licensing line, the partner mark, the small format concept, her name on it where it had always belonged. He went back to school in the winter, night sections, and called it his own idea again, and this time nobody had to pretend that was true. 6 weeks later, they opened the first store under the corrected name, the 190 Minutes North, the one built for a chain that never came, wearing the layout she'd drawn on a bus. There was a floor and a long east window and light that cut after 2, and there were units set out for people to touch, and there was a banner over the window, not cream and gold. Hand-painted, block letters. The room filled with people who'd come to see the store, and the family stood at the edges, and someone announced the designer, and this time they said her name, and this time the whole floor turned to look at the woman who had built it, and this time she let them. Simone crossed the floor, not with a box, with a notebook, the old one, the 2 depot codes still inside it, the 4 lines in block letters, because she kept her own copies and always would. She walked the length of the room she'd designed, past the units, past the window, and the people watched her the way they were supposed to have watched her 3 years ago, and her hands were steady, and there was a crowd, and they were hers. At the far edge of the room, outside the center of it where he belonged now, Han Min-jae stood in the black overcoat and put his hands together and applauded, and she heard it and did not turn, because it was not for him to give and not hers to need, and she walked to the window instead and looked out at the light cutting across her own floor. They finally saw her. She'd stopped waiting to be seen a long time before they got around to it. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever built something with your own hands and watched someone else carry it across the stage with their name on it? When you finally held the proof of what was yours, did you fight for it? Or did you pack your box in silence too? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about dignity, truth, and karma, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.